Hello, everybody. Thank you for stopping by this discussion. So, today I would like to discuss some few points about the research process. And basically, I'm just going to do this using a very short presentation that I prepared here. And I'm going to share it with you now. So, in today's discussion or video, I would like to just talk about some noteworthy points about research. And basically, I'll look at how to write a research proposal. So the contents of this presentation are as follows. Finding a research topic and a gap in literature, reviewing sources. This includes now social networks and research, referencing, as well as how to minimize plagiarism. About finding the research topic and the literature gap, here I would like to discuss on this subtopic. So, firstly, before one goes about the process of research, obviously one should have an area that interests him or her. So it's very important that you as a researcher identifies an area of your interest. Like, I mean, you should have something that is attracting your attention, something that you are interested in. Because if you pick something that you're not really interested into, so it's really going to be daunting, or it's going to give you tough time as the process goes on, and then you're going to find this whole thing boring. But when you have a subject that is of your interest, then you are not really going to have difficulty doing this research. Another thing that I would like to talk about when it comes to finding a research topic and the literature gap. So when you want to write your research topic, obviously there must be a gap. So how do I find this gap? I'm just going to tell you how I do this. Of course, you might have another way of approaching this, but I'm just saying it in my terms. So this gap, one can find it by mapping out an unexplored or an underdeveloped area. So you feel that there is that field or there is that subject, and you feel that other researchers have not sufficiently looked at it. So this missing piece in that field of research is then what you call the research gap. Now, this gap could come in many different ways. It could be about the population of other studies, the sample, a research method, and so forth. It could involve quite a number of aspects. And then, yeah, that's basically what I would like to tell you about the issue of the research topic and the literature gap. Otherwise, then if you don't have a gap, then there's no need to conduct that study. Moving on to the next point, this is about reviewing sources. So here I am going to look at social networks and research. So this now we are now living in a digital era, and most of the information is found on the internet. So I would like to just um, mention some of the digital platforms that I use for looking for information or reviewing literature. I, I, I actually made use of Google Scholar. There's also ERIC, that's the Education Resources Information Center. Now, I must mention that you might find yourself in this situation that you get some search results, for example, an article, then perhaps when you, for example, find a journal article, it is not giving you that open access to that source. And this is where you have to try other ways of locating or getting access to that article. So some sources are locked, or and some might even require you to pay a certain amount for you to open them. But then I would like to give this way of accessing some of these sources. Number one might try to Google it up or check it up in other platforms on the internet to see if it is available or available somewhere else. Number two, I would suggest that sometimes you find that you are registered with a certain organization, for example, a university. In the case of a student or maybe staff members, I don't know how they do it. I don't know. I'm not sure how specific institutions do this, but in my case, I have used this way. I use my webmail, could be a student webmail. So the moment you access that locked source by means of your either student webmail, because that student webmail is attached to that big organization, for example, a university. Those some organizations like universities subscribe to these other online libraries or online libraries or online platforms that are having these journal articles. uh, uh, so the moment you use those details, the moment you use those details and follow the procedures, you might uh, get access to that locked source or article. So let me not spend much time on that. Let me just move to the next point, which is now referencing. The very first thing that I would like to mention here about referencing is that um, it is very important before you embark on the process of writing your research. You should know the approved reference style. I mean, you should know the kind of reference style that your university approves. It could be APA. This APA has editions, of course. You should read about this, like the edition. Is it the sixth edition, seventh? Something like that. Or does the university use Chicago style, Harvard? You know, all these reference styles. You really have to make sure that you have confirmed as to which one is being supported by your university. Um, I must also mention that when you are writing your project or your research, you you might really experience difficulty creating your reference list, and it could be quite uh, a time-consuming task coming up with this reference list. But I'm recommending that if you use a citing software, this might save your time, and it might give you a reference list. What do I mean? I mean that if, for example, you try entering the sources um, the ordinary way you do it when you are like typing, I mean, like manually, it I believe it's really going to affect your reference list because you might end up skipping some sources. That you mention a specific source in the content, but when it comes to the reference list, you find that this source is not appearing on the list. But if you use this citing software like that's built in your computer, that might save your time and it might create you a rich reference list. A very important point here is that reliable sources are those ones that give a complete reference list. For example, a journal article should have details like the author, year, title, volume, issue number, and page numbers. So basically, these are just components that should form up your list of your list of references. Otherwise, then if you don't confirm with your source if it is having this required details, it might make your reference list look incomplete. So yeah, um, moving on to the next point. This is about how to minimize plagiarism. This is a very crucial issue when it comes to to the the field of research. So I'm going to explain this issue of plagiarism, though in a brief manner. How does one minimize plagiarism? Um, and a very useful way that I would suggest here is that of paraphrasing. How does one paraphrase? So you could, when you're reading these sources, you could change the sentence structure. You could also use appropriate synonyms. And then when you're doing that, you should make sure that you are maintaining the original idea of the source. As long as you're not copying and pasting, you should maintain the original idea of the source. But then I must caution you here, I must warn you on direct quotation that using too many quotations increases the similarity count. So when you're going to upload your article, for example, on Turnitin, you might find that you could even have 80% uh, uh, plagiarism percentage, and that's quite a high number for your study, and it will affect you affect your study negatively. So it's really relevant that you minimize the use of quotations. Try to paraphrase as much as you can, just to make sure that you write something original at the end of the day. Um, and then moving to the next part, and well, unfortunately, this marks the end of our presentation. Thank you once more again for joining my discussion. I'm really hoping that you learned a point or two, and see you next time.